Woman Who Chat is sponsored by Grow Radio. Grow Radio is an online radio station dedicated to bringing you a different podcast on the hour, every hour. I'm proud that Woman Who Chat is played on Grow Radio every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. and to be a part of their podcasting community. If you want to listen to the station, explore their shows, check out many of the blogs to improve your podcasting skills, or get your podcast onto Grow Radio, head over to growradio.uk today. Welcome to Woman Who Chat, and today I'm chatting with Charlotte Carter of I Dare to Leap. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you. Hello, Sandra. How are you today?
I'm really good. Now, I always ask my guests to introduce themselves because you can say it far better than me. So tell us what you do and what you do now.
So thank you so much for having me on here. My name is Charlotte Carter. I am a global high performance coach, and I work with men and women to really allow them to remember who they are and what they're here to do, and remove any resistance to actually just stepping into that.
Now, I want to talk to you today about energy, but before we come on to that, I love to know behind the person. So tell us what's your backstory? What brought you to what you're doing now?
So I have always had a real passion for helping people from a young girl. It was something that I really wanted to do. And I always saw the difference in people. So from like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, I was volunteering with people with extra needs. That's what it was termed at that time. And I spent a lot of time with people who were not in my normal circle, should we say, as a teenager growing up. I spent a lot of time helping other people in different spaces. And that was fueled my journey. So I worked in clinical trials for quite a while in oncology, presenting clinical trials to people all over Europe at the time, about new trials that were coming out, new products that were to market. And I really liked that side of things because it was all quite innovative. It was all about change. But some of these things were slow. The research was for ages and ages, years, and then you came and you had to present it to people. They had to get it, and then it was out there in the world. It was very fascinating, also very clinical. Then I went into the whole community space and worked with people in community, and I had a budget where people would apply for grants to help in their community. So people would like improve their village hall, or they would get a sports club going, or they would create something totally brand new. And I really loved that. And then my life and my whole journey went right into the whole field of mental health. And I worked in various roles in the mental health field. I worked with people who knew they wanted to get their life back on track. That's probably the best way to say it. So some people would identify with having a breakdown. Some people would identify with a relationship happening and things, an event where they're like, I've lost myself. And I worked for an environmental education charity, which was just epic because all of the work was out in the woods. And so we used to help people in programs and in projects out in the woods to help them basically get their mental well-being back on track. That was really powerful role. I also went into another role, which was the role prior to being a CEO of my own business, probably the catalyst role, which was a very intense mental health support worker, for want of a better phrase, where I was helping people who were the most vulnerable in society, who had got themselves caught up in the criminal justice system. They were very much in that repetitive revolving door way of living, where they would have an addiction, then they would go and commit crime to fuel their addiction, whether their addiction was abuse, drugs, alcohol. But ultimately, it was the same sort of thing, that people were lost in a different guise. That was a very intense role. That was where I would go into Crown Court, stand up, represent people. It was a stage where I wouldn't even know if people were even there or not when I was showing up for work. It was a great role. The charity is fabulous, but it definitely catapulted me into a different way of serving people after serving in the mental health field for so long. And as you'll hear later when I talk about energy, there was a moment in time where everything switched and I knew I had to set up my business.
It sounds as though all those jobs led you working with people for the purpose of seeing change in those people, facilitating their change to find themselves again, to bring you where you are today. And I don't think you probably could be where you are today without having gone through those particular skill sets, those circumstances, dealing with those people, a variety of people in different circumstances, but always the same undercurrent, as in they're lost and they need to find themselves.
For certain, I think, and I always say this for anyone listening, your journey is by far your biggest guide. For me, what I know about my energy is it's transformational. So if I think about every role that I've ever had, there's always been a passion and a purpose about transformation with those people in whatever guise it has been. So yeah, your journey always gives you signs where there's sometimes it's difficult to see at times when it's tough. But when you move through it or you reflect back, you're like, oh, that's why I was guided to that particular role at that particular time.
Yeah, and I believe everything happens for a reason. I also believe that we do jobs, even the ones we hate. We do a particular role, but the skills we acquire from that role are so transferable into other roles in the future. So if anybody's listening that are doing something they absolutely hate right now, you obviously you've got the power within you to change it, but also those skills are transferable and can be used in something else later on. So I'm dying to get to talk to you about energy because I am fascinated about this. And I know there's something out there, but it's all a bit woo for me. So come on, enlighten us all about energy.
So if I just follow on from where I was, I'll talk to you about the whole how the energy worked and why I switched everything. So I have a lot of energy, an immense amount of energy. So as a small child, I was told to keep still, be quiet, etc. So it's that kind of pattern, the too much type of energy. And in all the roles that I've just described, you couldn't show that. That was never appropriate to show any of that. Definitely not in working with in the mental wellbeing field. It was not necessarily an aspect of the role that I had in that space. So it'd been squashed. My own innate energy that I knew I had, it'd been squashed until I switched and had this whole change and moved into high performance. And that took me on a journey of actually learning about energetics and how they play a massive part, and opening myself up to the whole world of spirituality and how really we're all energy and what we focus on grows. And when you can harness that, you can propel it to build the best life you ever thought possible. But yeah, there's multiple facets to it.
So if somebody has never heard about energy, and because I'm a big believer that if you're in the right energy, then you can do more, achieve more, and just be generally happier. Whereas if you have a negative energy, you seem to attract more negative energy. And it's almost that spiral that you go down. You think, oh, you almost go into victim mode. So how do you propel yourself, obviously doing a lot of work, from that? I've always been in a positive energy space, a glass half full, look at everything from the positive. Even when it goes absolutely pear-shaped, I look for the positives. But people that sit in that negative space, how can they work to change that?
I think one of the biggest reality checks that I had, which I always share with people, is that you're a reflection to your outer reality. So I personally had to go through this journey of I was seeking validation elsewhere, feeling good enough, getting 1,000,001 qualifications elsewhere. And I had to realize that was never going to energize me until I did the inner work. So it always comes from within. If you're a person whose glass is half empty, and that's the nature of you up until today, or up until you're listening, because I believe anyone can change in a moment, then the way that you want to really address that is not suddenly try and take yourself into the highest vibration of joy. It's not going to be sustainable. I always say, what's the thing that you could do in this moment, in this hour, in this day, that is going to put a smile on your face, that is going to allow you to have a breather, that's going to allow you to pause and then take stock. And then there are a series of tools that you can use to then reflect on meeting yourself where you are with compassion, and then what are the steps that you can take to really understand what's the next part of your inner journey, because it's always an inner journey. And when you harness the fact that you're going to match the outer with your inner and put inner before outer, if that makes sense, then you really start to shine. But there's many other factors. People around you is a massive factor. I always say, think about your energy drains and think about your energy radiators. So you and I, when we met, it was like that whole energy radiator conversation. We were like, yeah, well, let's have a chat, let's have something to eat. We were in this space, being on each other's podcasts. It was a mutual energy exchange in a radiator, in a lighting each other up space. There are also, and everybody will have this, and it's about owning the fact that you have attracted this, there will be the energetic drains. The people, the systems, the programs, whatever it is, the situations that feel heavy, they feel hard, they feel like they're literally sucking the life out of you, and you're like, what's going on here? It's about noticing those first of all, and then you just want to be around the elevating yourself inside and then the radiators.
Yeah, I call them mood hoovers. If
Yeah.
you're around people that sort of you feel are sucking, dementors, if you watch Harry Potter, they're like the dementors. They suck the living reality from you and the energy from you, and you feel, God, that was a depressing conversation. But I think it's important to say that being in a positive energy doesn't mean you're running around going, whoa, life is brilliant 100% of the time. I believe you've got to have the yin and the yang. You've got to have the downtime, but it's how you deal with the down moments and how you reflect on those that allow you to move into that positive space. Am I right there?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, and it's probably something that I make a big stand for in terms of high performance, because people come to work with me, they want to be a high performer, they want to absolutely nail life. Like, my definition of high performance is that you're going to find your rhythm of life where you move through the moods, basically, and navigate your emotions in a way that works for you. What I'm going to teach you is to not sit in the lower ones for as long as you might have done in the past, and how to basically ignite your inner grit so that you're in the higher ones more often.
Yeah, and it's finding those coping mechanisms, isn't it? That when you are in a more negative space, or you're feeling more negative, or in a lower space or lower energy, it's finding those coping mechanisms. What are the things that you can do at that particular time to make you feel better, or to move out of that sort of, because it's that sitting, oh, I feel sorry for myself, this is all happening. We can have, I don't think it's good to recognize that, though. I think it's good to actually get bringing us down, because if we don't talk about things, then we bottle things up. So I think it is good to voice these things that are not so good in life, but it's putting those things in place to, I mean, I'm no expert on this, you're the expert, but that's what I do. And it's not all chocolate and wine.
It's not all chocolate and wine. I mean, we'd love it to be, but what I always say to the people is energy, emotions are just energy in motion. When you halt them, when you pause them, when you restrain them, they're going to manifest in your body, and they're going to hang around for longer. So when you understand a little bit more about how that works in your unique way, then allowing yourself, and I'm a massive advocate about this, allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to shout, allowing yourself to go, this just really isn't, I'm not very happy in this moment at all. I'm really cross, I'm really annoyed, I'm really frustrated with myself. You've got to let it out in whatever way. I always say journaling, for me, is one of the top tools, because it gets it out of your head onto paper. You can reflect back, and you can have a word with yourself more often than not about what you've written. But you can also acknowledge that some of that stuff might feel quite strong, and you know you've got to keep going. There's more stuff to come out. I always say you've got to declutter before you can attract in what you desire.
I'm a big believer in that. I declutter my life, I declutter my desk, I declutter my drawers, my sock drawer, but also my mental space and my IT as well. I have to declutter that. Otherwise, you have to create the space for the energy to come, don't you?
You do, yeah.
I mean, obviously you said you're an energetic person, and for those that can't see this, there is a wall of medals behind you. They look like runners' medals, is that right?
They're obstacle courses. So one of my greatest passions is the old obstacle course, which is a little bit of running and then hurling yourself over hay bales and propelling yourself into water and all sorts of things like that. One of my biggest, yeah, it's where I feel the most free in a very bizarre way. Yeah, so the medals are all about that. But also, I think for me, there's a driven sense of achievement, and a medal. I just love a medal. I enter any race that's got a medal.
No, I'm not a runner, I'm not a racer, and I can't remember what it's called now, the wet and muddy one that you do, that they run it locally every year, but no, I haven't done that one either. I've got the t-shirt, but I didn't run it. I did book to run it, but circumstances overtook, so the person who ran it for me gave me the t-shirt. So just because I'm a t-shirt collector, not a medal collector. But coming back to the energy, I just find it fascinating. So if somebody wanted to explore this more, if they wanted to think, well, hang on, I believe there's something, I don't know what it is, I'm not in the right space right now. What would be the first steps that they should do? Obviously reaching out to yourself, but what would the sort of things they should be perhaps exploring?
Let's just see if people can set the scene a little bit with energy, because people will know and have witnessed moments in time where they've experienced energy. So if I just say that we're all energy and everything around us is energy, it's about you tuning in to the vibration of what you want around you. So I believe that most people have experienced something like this, where they walk into a room or walk into a house or walk into a space and they feel like they can basically cut the silence with a knife. Nothing's been said at all, but there's a sense that's like, oh, something's amiss here. There's something that's like strange, or there's been an argument, or something's a little bit odd. That's energy. That's you tuning into the energy. And more often than not, if you reflect on any situations where you may be like that, there will have been an answer that's like, usually some people, there's been an argument, or there's been something that's ruffled people's feathers. And that's how energy people first start to witness. They're like, oh yeah, I've got the ability to sense that. So then it's like, okay, what else can you sense around you? So I'm trained in energy healing, where I can sense and I can put a stream of energy into people where they can be ignited and be able to basically sense multiple things. But ultimately, it's about understanding that there's something, I talk about it very scientifically, that there's something external to you. Whether you believe in spiritual, universal, source, God, or something like that, or just fate, you don't have to have any name for it, because I think the emotional attachment to the names people get hung up on. So something external to you that might freak you out at times, that might go, you can't explain it logically, that's always energy. So when coincidences happen, you bump into people and you're like, oh, I haven't seen you, I was thinking about you, that's all energy. When you step into a space and you're launching something in your business and people flock in, they're coming because your energy is radiating out to you. And being in that space where you can maximize that is really powerful. But it starts with your thoughts, because your thoughts can become things. So your head is the first part, and then you want your energy to believe, basically, and convince yourself what your head's saying.
Wow, it's just, I just find it absolutely fascinating, Charlotte, and we will share all your contact details in the show notes. I always ask my guests to leave the audience with a piece of advice or top tip. What would yours be?
Ooh, mine would be to remember that one thought can change your life. You, no matter where you are, and no matter what is going on around you, you have the power within you to change your circumstances, change your thoughts, change your feelings, and then ultimately change your action.
Love it. I always say that myself. You have the power within you to make change. If you don't like what you're doing, and when you get out of bed in the morning, you've got the power within you to change it. Thanks, Charlotte. Today I've been chatting to Charlotte Carter of I Dare to Dream.